15 things you didn't know about McLaren. Welcome to Alux.com, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. Hello Aluxers, and welcome to another exciting original video presented by Alux.com. Today we're talking all about McLaren, one of the most elite and exotic car brands in the world. Bruce McLaren was a professional race car driver who founded Bruce McLaren Motor Racing in 1963. In his short life, he became an accomplished racer and manager who was dedicated to developing the fastest and most efficient race cars. McLaren became one of the most dominant teams in Formula One racing history. Although Bruce died at a young age, his innovative spirit and drive for success were the foundation for the McLaren brand of today. McLaren didn't produce their first road car until 1992, but the McLaren F1 did not disappoint. Even 25 years later, it remains one of the fastest and best-built road cars produced in the world. McLaren has since released several other models, including the 570S, 540C, 675LT, 720S, 650S, and most recently the P1 and P1 GTR. McLaren Automotive is now a part of the McLaren Technology Group, which is based in the UK. The McLaren name is synonymous with luxury and power. We are inspired by the brand's constant drive for perfection, innovation, and dominance, both on the track and on the road. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at Alux. We know that owning a McLaren is on the must-do list of many of you Aluxers out there, so we're excited to bring to you our list of the 15 things you didn't know about McLaren. Number 1. Bruce McLaren died in a car crash at the age of 32. Only 7 years after establishing the Bruce McLaren racing team and more than 20 years before the first car bearing his name would hit the market, Bruce McLaren died in a car crash while testing his new vehicle at the Goodwood Circuit in England on June 2, 1970. The rear bodywork flew up while the car was at a high speed, causing the car to spin, run off track, and eventually hit a bunker. Number 2. The designer of the F1 made his initial design while sitting at the airport. While McLaren's chief engineer Gordon Murray was waiting for a flight home from the Italian Grand Prix in 1988, he sketched out the design for what would become the iconic McLaren F1. In May of 1990, the car was introduced at the Sporting Club in Monaco, but it was deemed to not be street legal because it didn't have turning indicators on the front. When that detail was corrected, the McLaren F1 was ready to go on the market as McLaren's first road vehicle. With a top speed of around 240 miles per hour, it was the world's fastest production road car until the Bugatti Veyron dethroned it in 2005, with a top speed of 253 miles per hour. Number 3. Actor Rowan Atkinson sold his twice-crashed McLaren for $12.2 million. British actor Rowan Atkinson, best known for his role as Mr. Bean, bought a McLaren F1 in 1997 for less than £1 million. He crashed the car twice. Once was a minor crash in which he damaged the hood, but the second was a much more serious crash into a tree and a road sign, which resulted in a $1.4 million repair bill. It was apparently money well spent, though, because in 2015 the actor sold his 17-year-old F1 for $12.2 million. Number 4. Production of the P1 GTR was limited to 58 cars. The P1 GTR was designed and built to be a track-only version of the P1 hybrid that McLaren released in 2013. Only 375 units of the P1 were sold, but the P1 GTR was much more exclusive, with only 58 models being sold. The car was first offered to P1 owners for about $2.5 million. As sold, the cars were not street legal but could be converted to reach road legal status, and around 30 of the 58 have gone through that conversion. Number 5. It costs thousands of dollars for basic maintenance for an F1. Owners have discussed the incredibly high prices of basic maintenance for the F1 supercars, and you might be surprised by some of the costs involved. Even after paying millions of dollars to purchase an F1, you should be prepared to pay around $50,000 to replace all 4 tires, about $8,000 per oil change, $250,000 to have your vehicle repainted, over $100,000 for fuel cell replacement, and about $800 if you need to replace the fire extinguisher. Number 6. One P1 purchaser crashed his $1.2 million car less than 24 hours after he bought it. One Dallas, Texas P1 owner, a 27-year-old man, crashed his car after owning it for less than 1 day. He picked up the car on a Tuesday, and before 8 a.m. on Wednesday, it was completely totaled. The driver blamed a wet spot on the road, but with the P1 offering 903 horsepower and a top speed of over 200 miles per hour, it's a safe bet that excessive speed and reckless driving may have factored into the crash. Number 7. Bruce McLaren held the title of youngest Formula One race winner for decades. Before founding his car company, Bruce McLaren was an accomplished racer. He won the 1959 United States Grand Prix at the age of 22, becoming the youngest person to ever win a Grand Prix. He held that title for over 20 years, and there have been only 2 people younger than him to beat that record to date. Number 8. McLaren's iconic orange color was chosen partly because it looked better on early color TVs. The color McLaren is known for is a distinctive bright orange that is immediately recognizable, but this wasn't always McLaren's traditional color scheme. One of the earliest color schemes used by McLaren was black and silver, but they changed to bright papaya orange for a few different reasons. First, the drivers who raced the McLaren cars wanted other drivers to be able to see them easily to help avoid accidents. Also, the brighter color showed up better on early color TVs, helping the McLaren race car to stand out in televised races. Finally, the color attracted more attention, so it was easier for McLaren to find sponsors. Number 9. The F1 was deemed too fast to compete at Le Mans. When the F1 was introduced to the racetrack, it was deemed too fast to complete at Le Mans, so McLaren had to make special modifications, including detuning the engine to slow it down to give other race cars a fighting chance. Even with the changes made that decreased the top speed significantly, the F1 won the 1995 24-hour Le Mans race overall. Number 10. The most expensive McLaren ever sold at auction went for $13.75 million. The most expensive McLaren ever sold at auction was sold in Monterey, California for $13,750,000. The car was a McLaren F1 LM, and the LM stands for Le Mans, the location of the renowned 24 Hours of Le Mans endurance race. Only 5 of these models were made in honor of the 5 McLaren F1 GTRs that took the overall win at the 1995 24 Hours of Le Mans. The F1 LM is the fastest version of the McLaren F1. As I mentioned, only 5 of these cars were built, and 3 of the 5 cars were purchased by the Sultan of Brunei. If you want to find out more about the extravagant life of the Sultan, click in the upper right-hand corner to check out our video of the 15 things you didn't know about the Sultan of Brunei. Number 11. The Weeknd drove his own McLaren P1 in his Starboy video. The Weeknd mentions a few different exotic supercars in the lyrics of his hit song Starboy, including the Lamborghini Aventador SV Roadster, the Bentley Mulsanne, and the McLaren P1. He mentions the P1 at the very beginning of the song, saying, "I'm trying to put you in the worst mood, P1 cleaner than your church shoes." His own gorgeous P1 is featured in the video with him driving it down Mulholland Drive with a dark gray Panther in the passenger seat. Number 12. The McLaren 570S is the first McLaren that costs less than $200,000. The McLaren 570S was introduced at the 2015 New York International Auto Show. It's the sports car designed for day-to-day usability and drivability, and it's McLaren's most affordable model yet, with a price tag around $180,000. McLaren expects that this model will triple their sales volume by 2020. Number 13. The executive director of McLaren Technology Group has a net worth of $150 million. In 2016, Zac Brown was named the new executive director of McLaren Technology Group at the age of 45. As a former professional racer, he is passionate about cars and has a collection of 45 of the finest road and race cars. Prior to taking the new position, he founded and then sold the world's biggest race-oriented marketing business for $76 million. With a net worth of $150 million, he could choose to never work again, but as a lifelong McLaren fan, he jumped at the opportunity. Number 14. Elon Musk totaled his uninsured McLaren F1. In 1999, when Elon Musk was a new millionaire, he bought a McLaren F1. A couple of years later, he hit an embankment and launched the car in the air. The car spun around and crashed to the ground, completely totaled. Elon said, "I had read stories about people who made money and bought sports cars and crashed them, but I knew it could never happen to me, so I didn't get any insurance." Number 15. Someone offered Jay Leno $11 million cash for his F1, but he declined. It's a well-known fact that Jay Leno is a car enthusiast and collector, so it's probably not too much of a surprise that he would be the first in the US to purchase a McLaren F1. Jay says that someone once offered him $11 million cash for the car, but he politely declined. Now that you've learned more about McLaren, we'd like to know if this car brand is at the top of your must-have list. If not, which brand is? Let us know what you think in the comments. Oh, still here? Here's a bonus fact just for you, dedicated Aluxer. McLaren's headquarters at the McLaren Technology Centre in the UK is a work of art. The building, along with the large man-made lake next to it, forms the shape of a yin-yang. The lake exists primarily to combat the enormous amount of heat generated by the wind tunnel they use to test their aerodynamics. Thank you for spending some time with us, Aluxer. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a video. If you want more, we handpicked these videos you might enjoy, or head over to Alux.com for the best in fine living content on the planet. Be a part of the largest community of luxury enthusiasts in the world and tell your story.